Hey guys, my name is Perplexion and welcome back to another video. This is kind of going to be a rant type of video while also going over a bit expectations or hope I have for the upcoming Polaris update. You may have noticed me, at least in the Discord, being less optimistic and more stern or demanding. Let me tell y'all right now, that ain't the case. Of course, as I get older, especially as someone who started this channel while I was a sophomore in high school, my opinions will change, the way I word things will change, and my expectations will change. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. I'll get to that in a bit. Let's start assessing the last 3 story updates, starting with Tartarus. Tartarus was, and still is to me, very fun to play through. The return of multiple characters was great. I love Virgo, and I found the fights pretty challenging and fun, and I really liked the gear. I didn't really care about the level cap, and honestly, even today, I still really don't. And don't worry, I'll get to that in a bit. Back to Tartarus. Tartarus was, and still is in my opinion, a solid update. Not the best one ever, of course, but it was already a massive step taken when it came to story progression. The only thing I disliked was the world building issues, such as not being able to see anything in combat due to being blocked by a wall, being able to move and phase through obstacles like in the maze. And even today, we still don't have that cute Haku'i Cerberus animation. Overall though, I liked the update, and didn't really have any complaints other than the building issues. The soft walks were annoying as well, but if I remember correctly, they were fixed in a timely manner, so they weren't too tedious. Here's where younger me's opinions form even more. Let's get to Zigazag. Alright, Zigazag. Gonna be honest. Younger me wasn't really cooking with her old opinion. I wasn't really taking anything into account but the story this time, because the story is generally the hugest thing I care about, aside from Roll Scratch, and I just want to progress through it. However, Zigazag and Tartarus were both released in the same year, Zigazag being released only a few months after Tartarus. I am going to be a bit lenient with them here as well because they probably didn't have a choice here, but in short, Zigazag is just bad. The soft walks were so constant and so bad that I was one of only few people to actually record and upload an entire playthrough of it. And by the way, that was because I decided I already got so far into the thing, I might as well finish it. I think it was like 11 PM or something at night, probably a school night if I remember correctly. Now, I ain't saying it's KI's fault for me staying up, that was my choice. The issue, well, one of them however, was the amount of soft walks. In total, I counted 3, potentially 4, because I think someone else mentioned something with dialogue. The first one being the manners in the cages, where if you didn't reach them for someone else and open their cages, you would be unable to progress and open them yourself unless you did some wacky stuff with the realms and teleporting to and from Skull Island. It took me a bit, but I eventually got it to work because I really wanted to progress more. The second soft walk I ran into was the Guardian Scarab soft walk, where the Guardian Scarabs and Emissaries wouldn't spawn. Again, I had to do some wacky realm stuff with that, and eventually got them spawn. This was like an hour or 2 later in the update after that first glitch. Then the third one that I thankfully didn't run into, it wouldn't have mattered much anyway since it was at the end, was the Calico Jake one, where you just wouldn't be able to turn the quest. After I struggled with softballs for about 5 hours, I basically typed out how I liked the update a lot, and looking back, I wasn't really cooking. I'll give myself a small pass on that one though because I was a bit younger and dumber. On top of that, we were fed multiple servings of wall. And don't get me started on Oksana's horrible appearance. I'll get to her a bit later, but I think the reason why her appearance being awful is pretty self-explanatory. Now let's get to one of my bigger points. Trianon Palace. This was released when I was in the 11th grade, and even more involved in the community. During the past few updates before this, I did notice people being way too lenient with KingsIsle. And what I mean by that is just praising them for absolutely everything, despite there being clear-cut issues. Some of that made me believe KingsIsle could get away with not putting in as much effort with these updates, if people just kept spamming overly positive feedback. Now, I'm not saying that feedback has to be extremely negative or anything. I'm not saying you have to bunch of negative parts if you don't want to, but people were just flat out excusing some parts of these updates. Like, I get it, small team, but I could at least want my vision to not be blocked in combat, yes? I'm including this because in Trianon, I got way less lenient and a bit more stern. Some people even hate me for it, but I still stand with my opinions. With that said, here's what I thought / currently think about Trianon. When Trianon was in test realm, it was neat, but the softwalks are killing me. Like I said, it's test realm, so softwalks should be expected and things aren't going to be perfect. But it's kind of more how some employees reacted to that. They say they tested the quest line, and I wanted to believe them. I really did. Maybe something just slipped through the cracks the last minute and softwalks affected us instead of the employees testing it. But I found and still find that kind of hard to believe. That was the thing that annoyed me the least. However, softwalks, okay, can be expected, especially with them happening super often. But remember when I talked about how I really care about the story? Yeah, that was one of the things that had me really worried and a bit annoyed. Like the Egg Shin, Egg Foo Young mistake. If you don't know that one, it was basically Bonnie Yen saying Egg Shin had a piece of the map instead of Egg Foo Young. I'd be less worried if it weren't the lead writer making these mistakes. Now I get, mistakes happen. He's been writing for multiple KingZog games for years, so it can be really hard to keep up. But just seeing errors of his characterization in a game he cooked so much in, especially in an Arc 1 department, somewhat worried and saddened me. About the mischaracterization, El Toro calling the guinea pig stinky caught me off guard. He would never call oppressed people anything like that, especially because he's known for fighting for the oppressed. Ratbeard and Simba would be more likely to say that, if anything, especially Simba in my opinion, because he's just stupid, but El Toro saying that caught me off guard. The free map pieces also had me a bit confused, because at first it felt as if they were just trying to rush Arc 2, but I'm having a bit of faith that's not what's happening. Maybe something will happen to those free pieces in the future. We don't know yet. The Z-Quest and Trianon docking not being implemented as well, despite them saying they would be, also annoyed me. It felt like a promise they broke. Maybe just couldn't do it. I don't know. Maybe it meant that in like 5 years or something. I'm also a bit sad that there's still no queen cheats, because you guys know me. I love hard fights. Like, a fight has yet to make me actually upset. Like, in terms of just casual questing, not like doing stuff about companions or restrictions or whatever. Maybe they just eventually decide not to implement them because the update is nearly a year old now. Other than all that though, I like the update. However, all those things I listed above was what made me come to like a 5 or 4 out of 10 at the time. And people took that as a 1 out of 10. Update sucked hot ass, never update the game again, shut it down. Why didn't I say anything remotely close to that? I point out both negative and positive parts about the update. Now that they changed things up and this is obviously live realm, especially with Trianon actually being portable this time, I can say my rating has been raised like a 7 out of 10. The update is still very good, and I'm happy that it did well. That now takes me to my main topic, Polaris. Polaris, one of my favorite worlds in Wizard 101. With everything that has happened, especially with Trianon's success, I can't say my expectations have skyrocketed, but they did increase a little. By a little, the least that means is no story errors and no tedious world building errors. Remember when I said I didn't care about the level cap? I'm not saying it ain't important to the game, because it definitely is, but because I honestly don't expect one. Now, I could be super wrong, but when you see my bingo sheet I have saved for a playtest from, you'll see that one of the squares have no level 80. I didn't say no level cap increase, period. I said no level 80. But I still don't expect an increase, and I never really care about one much. I just want to keep playing for the game. Obviously though, we're going to have to level up to keep up with the fights. I'm not saying I don't find cap increases important, because they most definitely are. But with how they've been scaring me a tiny bit lately, I don't want to expect too much. Now, some things on my bingo card may seem like high expectations, but they're more like guesses than expectations. Some things I generally do expect, but most of them are just guesses based on what's happened recently with the game. But of course, for their sake, it's definitely wise to increase the cap. I think it's likely they will, but I don't want to get my hopes too high. Basically, my expectations for Polaris are: do not have constant soft walks, like 1 or 2, sure. Free? Maybe, but that's when we'll start to get concerning. There's no way to 100% verify if testers are actually going for the update legitimately, and I really want to say they are. But until I know for sure, I won't be saying much more on that. Next, world building. I better be able to see my character most of the time. Now that we do have more people on the team, I'm a bit more optimistic in this department, but I still can't get too excited. And last but not least, don't let the Ryan be some dog water, especially with Oksana. I'm going to give her a chance because, like Miranda Breyer in Wizard 101, Oksana barely got a chance to shine. She appeared for like 3 minutes in Zigazag, and that was literally right at the end. Then we didn't hear from her again for a year. Just as long as Oksana isn't more Gamp 2.0 and actually gives me a reason to hate her, more like a narrative way, not a personal way, and love her character, I'll be fine. She got done wrong, and I do hope they do her second chance right. Because honestly, for me, this is her last chance. Just want to keep the momentum, have solid writing, do Oksana right, and have the update be enjoyable to progress through, I'm 100% happy. That's it. That's my bare minimum. What's my expectations? I might be like, okay, Purple. So basically you just turned super cynical and doom posty. No. I'm just simply being more honest with myself and the people who run this game. I love this game with all my heart. And I will do everything I can to ensure I give it the most accurate feedback and my opinion as possible. I truly believe they can do even better than Trianon, and perhaps next year, even better than Polaris. That is, if they keep up the momentum. If there's one thing that I hope the devs the most, it's honesty from the players. Before you go, I do want to thank you for watching, and with all this said, none of this means to be relentless, rude, and harassing the King's out. And it's totally okay to have positive opinions, just as long as you're also acknowledging potential negatives in some updates and aren't just blatantly excusing them for it or attacking other players for calmly, not rudely, pointing them out. You're fine. We are not the devs' friends, and we shouldn't treat them as such. We give them our money so they can continue making more content for us. Let's not let it go to waste.